Okay, let's get into it. I'm pretty surprised how many people want to talk about insurgency in sports. It's pleasantly incredible to see this. So we're going to try to do this a little differently. I don't know about you, but I get pretty bored at panels where everybody agrees. So we're going to try to make this a little more disagreeable. All through week, we've been talking about the fan experience on Discourse, where we've been arguing about these sort of different forces that are coming together and also taking things apart that are kind of a contradiction. So, for example, we have sports leagues and sports rights that are tripling in value. The NBA is about to triple in value. The leagues and the teams are worth more than ever. But at the same time, we have fractures happening. We have new leagues forming. We have new behaviors. People are looking at their phone. They're not watching games anymore. So this kind of doesn't really make sense. So I'm going to just kick it off with a pretty simple question. In 5 years from now, will Generation Alpha have the same kind of relationship with their fans, and specifically the same kind of relationship with their fans as they do today? So, MJ?
I think that's impossible to think of anything to be in the same way. Everything has changed in the last year, let alone 5 years from now as we continue with more social media, more interaction, more integration, and the live game day experience is going to be different. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think Gen Alpha, and these are all your kids who are going to be leading the charge, will have a deeper, I think, appreciation depending on what their fandom is and how their parents and their friends are interacting within the space too. So I'm actually really excited to see how it develops and what they can teach us about the game day experience.
But MJ, why are the rights going up then? Why is the Super Bowl still so important?
Oh my God, when I become a millionaire and a CEO that's running a league, I will absolutely let you know the answer to that question. But because the rights and the butts and seats are what drive the revenue for these leagues, so they're always going to go up.
Alexis, what do you think here?
I think these are some lagging indicators. Okay, 2019, March, I'm tweeting about how undervalued women's sports is and how I'm going to buy an NWSL franchise. At the time, it cost $1 million, right? This led to Angel City. Part of the reason for that is because media rights have often right-defined sports teams and sports leagues in value. But they were playing their games on Lifetime. And in that first owners meeting, I looked around and I was like, do you all have any self-respect? Like, why are you settling for this? Invest in these women, invest in these teams. And so part of it is, frankly, there's so many emerging sports that should not have been emerging for this long that are now catching up. And then for the big ones you're talking about, the NBA, et cetera, this to me feels like, I don't know, when I was a 21-year-old pitching this idea for a company called Reddit, where I had to convince people that strangers on the internet would have more influence on the news of the day than the most trusted names in media. And all of those experts said, that's crazy, it'll never happen. And so these media deals are real, but all of those incumbents buttered their bread from an era before social media. So it's not going to go away. But we know where this generation is consuming. We know how they're consuming. And that's why our North Star, whether it's been for Angel City, LA Golf Club, or this record-breaking women's track event we're doing, starts with telling the stories of the players first. Every minute, they're not actually playing the sport so that fans build the relationship and so that they care on game day.
I mean, that sounds good. I get it. It's a great reference. But the major sports have survived multiple changes of media distribution. Like, way longer than the internet, way longer than TV, back to radio. Like, these sports have been dominant. Nothing has changed it. The resilience of people going to these sports and playing them in early ages and staying engaged with the major ones seem to go through it. So, I mean, Neal, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm representing the golf side of things, and I know that that's exactly what we're building with the TGL and the new league. That's Tiger and Rory's new stadium golf that's coming out in January. Because golf is, I love playing golf. It's really boring to watch, right? How do we evolve the sport and make it a new league with teams and different level of fandom where you have teams you can root for? So a globally recognized and popular sport has never had this. So we look at it from a different way. But that means how do you fit that into a 2-hour window with the most popular players on the PGA Tour? So I'm pretty bullish that it's going to change, but that's why we're doing this also, because this is what younger audiences and so many other people out there that don't want to sit through that current, 4 to 5 hour golf match 4 days in a row. Right? That's literally one of the main premises for this league.
So, MJ, you're a Emmy award-winning commentator on the NFL Network. if all this thing is changing, do live sports matter at all anymore?
I think so, no question, because even as the entertainment, TV, and film industry have continued to change faster than any of us can keep up with, especially since the pandemic last year with the strikes, the constant has been, especially for linear television, live sports. When you think about the top 100 programs that have been watched, 98 of them were football games. So I think there's something to be said about how ubiquitous sports are. Even if you're a casual fan, even if you're someone who just sits down and watches because your family is watching it, people are still tuning in. Many folks, and I'm one of them because I work in sports, even if I'm at dinner, I have to pay attention to the game, so it's on my phone. Sorry to everyone at dinner with me. Most of the time, they don't mind. They want to see the score as well. But the engagement with live sports is very much still there. And people still crave a live programming, something that is unscripted, that is unpredictable, that is passionate and engaging at every turn.
Yeah, and just to double down on that, I mean, I'll tell y'all what's going to happen in 10 years, okay? All these pillars of entertainment, you've heard about AI a lot. Think of the movie industry, television, music, and sports. AI is going to evolve the way we consume content in ways we barely understand today. But guarantee this, I am certain of this, every screen we look at will be programmed to show you what you want, when you want it, the way you want it. And 10 years from now, there's a dystopian version of that, but the tech optimist in me shows that we have a part of our humanity that needs to feel something human. The ups, the downs. I grew up a Washington Commanders fan, so I know about the downs.
Shout out to the team name.
The Washington football team. The reason we enjoy suffering in sports is because it makes the victories feel even better. And 10 years from now, we will have a steady dopamine drip of all that other content to make us laugh, to make us cry. All those other forms of entertainment are going to be very much upended. They won't go away, but they will be upended. And I'm certain, no matter how good those robots get, you will never want to see robots play soccer or play golf, maybe for the novelty, but you need to see that human experience. And so if you're wondering why I'm investing so much money into sports, in particular women's sports, it is because of this. 10 years from now, live sports will be even more important to us because it'll be the one thing to connect us to our own humanity when we want to be entertained.
I have to say, I see a totally different 10-year window than you.
Great.
I mean, it sounds good. That sounds like someone in, what year did you start Reddit?
2005.
Someone in 2005 saying, hey, newspapers and everything is going to be different, but it's going to be the same. We're going to care about newspapers. I actually think AI does a totally different thing. I think we are old people now that think that we need to connect at that level. And AI, we're going to see a moment in time where more is fake on the internet than real.
True.
And Generation Alpha, or whatever you want to call the next generation Alpha, will grow up with that. And AI...
Aren't we there now, though?
No, there's more.
Pretty close.
More content right now is actually still generated from humans than fake things.
How much of it's been touched up with Facetune, and how much of it's been touched up with Photoshop?
I think altered is different than totally fake. I mean, I'm talking about synthetic, something that
I know
is not real.
You have to qualify fake,
Fair.
right? 'Cause
Okay,
there's a
fair
lot
enough.
of
I'm talking about
contrived-
synthetic, originating from a human to reaching another human.
Sure.
And I would say live sports is the perfect example of real. It is
Yes.
live, human to human connection.
Dude, I would argue the perfect photo that y'all are going to take of Can that you don't even run through Photoshop is still being filtered and curated.
Of course.
Well, it's
But
clearly,
sport-
and that photo is going to be about us, not what's coming after, clearly.
But sport is that truth. And yeah, we're living in it right now, and it's thriving, and I think it'll just continue to do so.
And why aren't people watching games then? I mean, Neal, you said golf is boring. You're reinventing golf because it's boring.
But I was going back to Alexis first on the steady drip, but having this curated interaction with live sports where everybody has a different curated maybe experience. And we've talked about this before. But the question is, doesn't that take away from that shared experience if not everybody has the same experience of the game and the moments? That's what I was
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. We want to have that shared
You
experience.
have to have it shared. That's one of the main things about live sports and coming together and experience the same thing. And what you saw and getting into the details, you can dig in later. But having not that same shared experience, that's hence for live sports and that viewership, it's not going anywhere.
I think that feels like an old person's concept again.
I'm
And
getting
let
it.
me, MJ, I'm curious what you think about this. TikTok, it's amazing, right? Like, we get sucked into it. Like, it's undeniable that we're like, this is amazing, I'm going to keep going. And you're like, it knows me great and everything's like, but at the end of it, we don't feel fulfilled. I get that, but it still takes our time. You know what people are doing while they're watching that live game?
Scrolling.
They're scrolling. So how does that hold true? Even we want to say shared experience. Are we actually having a shared experience?
Or are they betting also?
Also that, or playing fantasy, I mean, we're scrolling when we're at dinner. We're scrolling when we're listening to a panel. We're scrolling as we're walking down the streets of Cannes, right? We're in the French Riviera. And I think it's just the attention span. We have been now conditioned to have to need a secondary or a tertiary form of interaction or stimulation at every point in our lives. It wasn't like that before. I mean, we've seen on TikTok a lot of the parody videos of when I was a kid, I would sit in the car and watch the raindrops fight for who gets to the bottom fastest. That doesn't exist anymore, right? Not us aging ourselves. Elder millennial, I'm proud. But it's different. And even we fall in the trap. It's not just Gen Alpha and Gen Z who are addicted. I'm literally sitting on my phone right now. Am I going to use it in however long we're going to be here? No, but I needed it next to me for comfort for whatever reason. So our world has changed. And I think even if you're scrolling, part of your brain is sort of still there. You'll look up if you hear something. We consume things differently now entirely.
It sounds like you're making a case for synthetic experiences.
You can't avoid it. I mean, that's what the world is now. I think we fell into this almost without realizing it. Even my parents, who are in their 60s and 70s, they're scrolling through. They still do Facebook. They're scrolling through Facebook, right, and checking out what's going on, sending me a video. I have to hey, Dad, did you hear what I said? And he's like, what? Has a Bluetooth in, watching a funny video on his phone. So it's interesting.
So with that, I mean, Neal or Alexis, I'm curious. I mean, Alexis, you're investing a lot. Neal, you're kind of being insurgent in this new team. Are you nervous that it's not actually about the sport at all? It's only about the stories? I mean, let's be honest here. If we want to talk about tennis, Kyrgios, it's not the best ever, right? We're all sitting here, besides wanting to hear us talk, wanted to see other players. There are other incredible NFL football players that sat on the stage this week, and I didn't see this standing room only crowd. We know that F1 is about the stories. I've heard so many times this week it's about the stories.
Yeah. Look, there is truth to that because at the end of the day, the reason I saw my dad cry for the first time was not because of a logo. It was not because of the owner.
It's not from the Commanders
logo? Though Dan
logo?
Snyder could do that, and yeah, the old logo could have. It was for the trials and tribulations of the human beings who we loved. And if that generation could feel that way, this generation will know these athletes better than anyone. And the dynamism, the ability to tell those stories direct, you see more and more the meme of everyone starting a podcast. That is an example of it happening. But look at the fellas who are doing it. They're a little closer age to me than the generation coming up right now that is actually truly digital native. And again, this is where the women just outperform the men in terms of their storytelling, and that's where the weight is. That's where the attention is. And so you'll have to tell the story of your team everywhere. And you're going to have to do it through the lens of the stories of the players and why you should cheer for them.
So, Neal, thinking about this, are you focusing more on the stories than the actual game?
From a golf perspective, it's a much lower bar, to be honest. Right?
It's true.
There has not been the same level of content and storytelling, and who are these players? What are they about? Full Swing, the Netflix series, was the beginning of this, right? And it was, you'd still say late to the game, but shout out Chad, Mum.
Chad, great work.
That's the beginning. There's so much more. All these players, they're the best in the world. And how many people that are not just the golf addicts know anything about them? So there is so much to be told, and you're going to follow these people more. You're going to care about them. You're going to watch them more, right? So yes, it's about this. It's about the stories, but then also just with golf in general, there are so many people, probably even here, that play golf but do not watch golf, right? So that experience there, because it's not made for TV, it's fun to play. It's difficult to watch, right? Now, if you have that in a bite-sized window with the best players mic'd up and bring these other components of what makes sports so popular and engaging and interesting, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, look, Tiger Woods single-handedly carried the sport of golf on his back and made it culturally relevant for so many people. Now that generation of young people, we're starting to have kids. They're the stars of the tour. And the irony is, the tour is traditional and hasn't been able to lean in maybe the ways it would have liked to. Think of COVID. The popularity of golf pops off. Thanks to social media, golfers who are not, let's say, traditional golfers, because the sport of golf has been so incredibly gate-kept, are actually a counterculture to something that's so real, and it's happening online. And when Neal first turned me on to this stuff, I could not stop looking at the diversity, the breadth, all the people who are actually huge fans of golf that have been so underserved traditionally, who have been dying for a new format and a thing that speaks to them. And it's a privilege to be able to do it, because all that same energy that made someone say golf is not for me is the energy that becomes the force when they realize, no, actually it is. And to ride that wave is a blessing.
So MJ, I'm kind of curious on that, because I think you mentioned like casual fans. There's a lot more casual fans, at the NFL Network. It's a bit traditional. Is it possible for a traditional media company, specifically traditional sports rights, to both protect the old way because of the sports rights, yet embrace the new way? And before you answer that question, I want to say it's easy to say both. They need to do both. But if we look at every other industry outside of sports, news, traditional entertainment, there was a crack and the whole thing collapsed because that extra premium, the economics didn't work when you went direct to consumer the same way. You couldn't bundle things up and add premiums. So what are they doing now? How do you handle that situation?
I think that's been the biggest issue and the biggest problem still left to be solved within the TV linear landscape. You cannot have your cake and eat it too, which sounds, I hate that phrase because it sounds stupid. Why would we have cake if we can't eat it? But I think that's what makes it so relevant, because it's frustrating. It's a problem that looks like it should be easy to solve, and it isn't. You're right. You can't have it both ways. You need to evolve with the newer audience, and sometimes two things can be true at once. I don't think that's the case for TV. You can't please everybody all under one umbrella and try to innovate. And so you sort of have to pick a lane. Do you want to progress? Do you want to evolve? Or do you want to keep it the old way? And I'll tell you, I'm in a lot of meetings where the phrase, oh, this is how we've always done it, gets thrown around a ton. That is an insane and unhinged thing to say, especially in the year of Beyonce 2024. Can't do it.
First principles thinking is a cliche in tech, for the exact reason that you stated, because it should never be good enough in your organization. If you want to do excellent work, it should never be good enough to just say, this is the way it's always been done. Because the killer question is why. And if that answer is just, well, it's how we've always done it, awful answer. That is a pitifully low bar. If you're comfortable enough with your conviction of why you're doing something to answer that question why with a good fucking answer to get to truth, that's how change happens. And it's wild because sports has been this weird, I can't say the M word, monopoly, but let's just say it doesn't operate in the freest of marketplaces. And there's no way you're building one of the most successful consumer social apps or a SaaS software business or a sneaker company unless you're willing to compete in the free market and be the best and ask that question why. And it's wild because sports is just now getting this culture shift internally where folks are able to say it, and boy, is it going to get fun. Because when you get those forces, things will get better, and the product for athletes, the product for fans, is going to level up big league.
Okay, let's talk about getting fun then, because this isn't fun enough. Do you think, I'm curious, and even Neal, I'm curious your thoughts on this. A lot of people in this audience are marketers or business people, there's brands, incredible opportunities. And historically, up to this point, like the Super Bowl is still also the Super Bowl for brand moments. And now there's insurgent leagues and new type of opportunities. Do you think we're at a tipping point with these valuations on the traditional rights deals, which obviously drop down to the advertisers, which drop down to the different sponsorship deals, the whole ecosystem? Are we at a tipping point? Like, is the bubble about to burst and this is going to give away for totally new leagues and a totally different ecosystem that may not have the M-word monopoly the way it has? Like, is this the moment?
I mean, that's clearly a better question for Alexis on valuation since he buys a bunch of sports teams. But I would
can
say
answer that.
I was thinking more just on the opportunity there is, because there is so much that's still legacy. It's how we've done it. I think the content capture piece and the way that we're seeing these new leagues pop up that are just from YouTubers, right? That are starting their own leagues and tournaments, and they're wildly popular. There is like what Overtime has done, and all these other models where there is so much opportunity where it doesn't need to always be at the big league level, and I don't see that slowing down, right? But again, I see there's so much opportunity in specific sports. There's so much upside in golf, clearly, right? Because it's never been done this way. It has been probably more traditional than anything. So there's never been teams in golf, right? So like, let's talk about valuations and what the opportunity is. This is the first time even to bring these independent contractors together to build a model like this. So plenty of upside there.
I think there's no such thing as oversaturation anymore, right? In any market. People want more and more of what they like, more of things that they've never seen before. And so that's why you see all these different verticals popping up and people will tap in. Now, not everything is going to pop off. Not everything is going to dominate the way perhaps a traditional league will, but people will watch in some capacity. And I think it's worth the shot. It's worth the risk. And you might reach a very niche audience, but it's an audience that still wants to be served. So it certainly should be out there.
So I'm going to throw another question out there that is sort of in line with this. Insurgent leagues, there's now a ton of them. Paul Rabel is somewhere in the audience. For those who don't know him, he's, I would argue, arguably the best lacrosse player ever. He also started the Premier Lacrosse League, very successful league. There's very few of Pauls out there. There's very few leagues that kind of can actually break into it. We've seen a little with the MLS and some of the women's league recently. Now we have thousands of leagues showing up. Every hobby sport is a league now. I guess there's two questions are there. I think he gave me a stat that since 1990, less than 1% were successful of these insurgent leagues. We're talking about all these changes, but there's a lot of little success with a lot of money going into it. So the two questions are, number one, how do you become successful in starting a league? I'm curious about Neal. And how do you survive? I think the stat that was given is like you have to survive 3 years. If you don't survive 3 years, and the second, well, let's start with that question.
For the TGL, the new golf league, I guess there's a good example is you get it on primetime Monday night ESPN with the best players on the PGA Tour, including Tiger, to play in this format. Like that slot, when there's no other professional sports playing from January to March, gives you a pretty good opportunity there.
So traditional media is your move?
That is.
Look at that.
That's going to be just fine for this on that same Monday Night Football window that everybody is already used to watching, but never in this type of format. Yeah, that's a head start. I think the
You
media
see why
is
that's
like,
a little
you know,
shocking.
You can talk about how the NWSL and the media rights and all that
I'm
started,
happy
but
to
it's
do
a
that.
little different with when you start on ESPN on Monday night.
Look, this is a subject I've been thinking a lot now. We're hosting the largest purse ever in the history of women's track. We're doing this event in September. And so I'm starting to think about this with a different hat, right? Not just as a team owner. And obviously, you build businesses in 2024 using software. And if you come from our world, you build businesses and software as you're going. And so my question would then be, every time I've bought a team in a new league, my first question is like, oh, tell me about the software infrastructure that you're using to run your business. It is hard to stifle the laughter when I hear the answer. And it doesn't matter if it's a big four, it doesn't matter if it's emerging. Even though we're in the era where I think everyone hopefully agrees that software is eating the world, has devoured the world, and you can't imagine building $1 billion business without it at the core. Sports leagues are still very, 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 very traditionally run. And so the opportunity here is, again, first principles. Like, why do we have to have 100 humans to curate photos, to find the right one, to send the brand after the game in an email that recaps and makes them feel good because their logo was 99% visible while this player was kicking a goal? That's a lot. That is a ton of wasted energy that now, thanks to software and AI, literally takes seconds. And so what happens when you build an entire league with software infrastructure? I think it's going to be a lot of fun because, again, better fan experience, better brand experience, better athlete experience. And I'll give you the one rant. Nearly every player in the NWSL now can walk off the pitch, open their ScorePlay app, and see the photos that were taken of them during the game, approve the ones that they like, download the ones they want to post, and where do you think those approved photos go? Right to the content team, right to the brand team. This is 2024, and that is actually a revolution in professional sports. We look at that from tech and say, that is table stakes. And you're going to watch this compound, and again, those better user experiences will stay winning.
So, MJ, are the leagues a joke? They just don't know technology? Technology is going to swallow this all?
They've been so successful, they haven't needed it.
And-
First of all, I refuse to get fired.
Okay. Let me ask this another question. How is technology not going to take your job?
It's not taking, no.
AI can't do
Your
what I
job
do,
is
baby.
great. No.
That's number one.
The human experience, the why, no. You're
The human
great.
connection. I
Look,
think
look.
that's true.
MJ is like, the true insurgent on this stage.
I hope.
So,
Lord,
so
I hope.
I have full confidence, but I just want
I
everybody to
would
know
hope-
why.
I would hope that I can stand on what I've built. That Miles, for example, would prefer that I interview him rather than an AI robot.
No, I want that too.
But somewhere down the line, that you can still have those interactions with folks. And I think it comes down to the storytelling. I think AI can perhaps curate a script from something that you feed it. But where are you going to get those moments where somebody really breaks down that wall between the other human being, right? I think especially in football, the biggest responsibility I take in my job is being the eyes and ears for everybody who does not have the access that I have earned and worked for. So I take it very seriously when I try to show them the guys underneath the helmet, right? With football, it's very difficult because you can't see the guys most of the time. So the storytelling is that much more important. That's why you see them taking control of that and doing their own I would say athletes starting podcasts are a bigger threat to my job than AI, quite frankly.
Yeah, look, I love that answer. I'm gonna go with Alexis's anecdote of Reddit again. Unfortunately, I see a future where we won't tell the computers what is uniquely human. They will tell us, and I like the hope that our humanity can survive through that. I believe that is the two truths. I believe is technology is undefeated, and so is humanity. Yeah. So I believe in that. But let's see where it goes. But before we go, I'm in negative time here. I know everybody's waiting for the next act here. But I have a breaking question from the audience that I need to ask you, Alexis. And hopefully I'm not going to fuck this up.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
All right.
Is it safe to say that from Alondra to Central, that, and I quote, they better not speak on Serena, end quote.
That is right, yes. And I stayed up until 6 in the morning to watch K-Dot's show. Oh, it was a beautiful moment. Yes, that is correct. And thank you for asking that.
Well,
What a great day.
thank you for these great panelists, and thank you. Have fun.